some, but it's probably
Sorry about that.
late evening for others. I'm going to start sharing, and I'm going to jump straight into what I want to share, and I'm going to do it quickly. Can I get a thumbs up from people to say you can see my slides? Fantastic, thank you. So these slides are all available as soon as we're finished. We can press a little button and you can get a PDF, which means I'm going to fly through them, people. There are some information and bullet points. I'm going to highlight one or two things that I want you to concentrate on so that I spend as little time as possible talking, but still give you an introduction to this way of thinking so that we can spend most of the time doing. And the nutshell of this all is we want to have ways of thinking and practice that helps us navigate complexity and an unknown future. So if everybody's ready to jump in, let's get going. And I'm starting my clock. And Ben, thank you, is my wingman for everything today. There we go, including timing. Here we go. Um, People, the future, and I'll tell you in a minute, there's many futures, not one future, because it's not cast in stone. It's not predetermined, even though it feels like that sometimes. It's also not an empty space. The future exists already because what shapes the future exists in the present. So even though one cannot study the future because it doesn't exist, you most certainly can study and work with the factors that shape the future. And there's the important point. We shape the future through how we act now, and our values and beliefs are central to this. So if you have a doom and gloom view of the future, you are going to take decisions and make choices that amplify how you feel now, and that tends to then start creating the future. So that's why it's so critically important to be able to know how to work with images, ideas of different futures. On the one hand, the most common technique is always scenarios, and on the other hand, start making sense of the complexity of the present. Now, working with the future is not it's my way or the highway. And I mean, there are many, many people that do this. People sit in Silicon Valley in fancy offices and they decide we are working with the future and shaping it. Okay, it's happening right now. We also do it through processes of dialogue and social construction, because guess what? We don't all agree with one another. We live in plural societies. I'm lucky enough to live on the African continent where there are 2,000 languages and multiple cultures. And I see you come from all over the world as well. So that ability to work, to dialogue, and through social construction, shape and engage with different ideas of the future and then proceed is critical to working with it. Okay, it's not well, I mean, you can if you want to be authoritarian about it, but not good and not always smart. So this process of social construction also involves recognizing and critiquing power and privilege. And again, it's because there's not one view of the world that is a correct view, even though it sometimes feels as though we are all being swept along one specific path. Now, when it comes to the actual sort of academic terminology, futures tends to be an umbrella term. It encompasses a whole lot of things for a global transdisciplinary field of study. And it's got methods, and it focuses on futures-oriented analysis. It includes a range of activities and methods, but mostly it focuses on longer range planning and alternative future scenarios. It's always plural, because there's always more than one future to explore. Then the word foresight, and you see they get used interchangeably. You'll see me use them interchangeably. Foresight, and you'll come across this very, very fashionable nowadays, strategic foresight, and that's a capacity. Okay, it's a capability to think systematically about the future to inform decision making today. So it's a capacity. You're able to work with the future. All right. So this is how one of the best ways to think about it. It's called the futures cone. Now, if we have this line here that is the present, remember it's not an empty present. It's not a thin line. It's a thick line because it's got history in it. As much as there's a futures cone, there's a history cone lying behind it. There are many different histories. There are many different interpretations. My idea of South African history, I'm a middle-aged white Afrikaans-speaking woman, is vastly different from my fellow citizens. But we carry that with us into the present. It helps shape the future. Look at these different futures. If we just project forward, okay, just extrapolate, business as usual. And many people that do modeling and forecasting do this. You get one view of the future. But then if you tweak your forecasts and your variables, you might get different views. You could have probable. These are things that could happen. Or these are plausible. Okay, if something really interesting happens, we could see this happen. Or might, possible futures. This is now really thinking way out. And preposterous. We add that because when people say something's crazy, it could never happen. Guess what? We're in a preposterous present. Crazy things that we never thought could happen are happening right now. So obviously it can happen in the future as well. And the way I want you to think, an easy way to remember this is to think of Apollo 11. Apollo 11 was the rocket that put a man on the moon in 1969. If you went back far away enough in history, it was preposterous. Like you couldn't imagine putting a man on the moon. Except in the late 1800s, there was a French science fiction writer, Jules Verne, and he was writing stories about that already. And that's why a lot of people actually work with science fiction now. Science fiction writers call a lot of things that might actually happen in the future. It's never prophetic, it's never predicted, but it's interesting to work with them. Now, what happened when we get to World War II? It started becoming possible to put a man on the moon because the rockets that were being built got bigger and bigger. World War II ended, the Americans went and extracted those German scientists, they make movies about this stuff, and said, okay, you guys work on these rockets now. And then all of a sudden it became plausible. And then what happened? In 1961, John F. Kennedy becomes the president of America. Russia and the United States are in a space race, and he says, we will put a man on the moon before the end of the decade. Okay? Because it's difficult to do, we will do it. And there it becomes a preferred future, a preferable future. And look at that power of, if everybody agrees, everybody starts working from different perspectives in different ways, but there's a goal to work towards. That becomes a preferred future. And that is what's so important about this, is because if you start doing small things now, right? Small choices, small things, but you work in conjunction with people and you have a view of a preferred future. Even those small things, if they get done now, over time can start leading towards that preferred future instead of just being swept along to any of these other futures. So it's, if you think of a sailboat, you're far away from your destination where you want to be, but a small change of the tiller, would change your direction in a small way. But over time and distance, it becomes a large, different destination. So that's how to think of working with futures. This is an academic version of this. It's beautifully explained. It's a lovely paper. The bottom left here, you can see the reference to that. Go to Google Scholar, click the button. It's open access. Download the PDF if you're interested in this stuff, and you can read in detail how this kind of thinking works. Now, extremely important. There isn't one version of the future that is better than another. On the African continent, if people start talking about smart cities and shiny skyscrapers and things like that, we tend to call it a used future. It's like a used car. It's come in from somewhere else, because there are futures all around us. There's nothing as a normal future or a better future. So 2 pictures in 50 years' time, an African city could easily look like this, or it could also look like that. I mean, on the right-hand side, we've got Wakanda. On the left-hand side, we've got downtown Lagos. And they, both are equally relevant. You need to be able to work with all sorts of different futures. There's no such thing as some are better than others. When you work with and make sense of and start engaging in a structured manner around futures and strategic foresight, there's a range of tools and methods and approaches. So the most famous one, and I'm sure most of you have heard about this, is scenario planning. But there's many different ways of constructing scenarios. Horizon scanning. This is different from doing a literary review. Literary review, you look at what has been produced, what is the knowledge in this field. Horizon scanning is about looking forward. It's about looking for weird and wonderful things that aren't necessarily connected and working with those. Sense making. This is all about overcoming biases, because we all have biases. The only thing you can do, and it's a very powerful thing, is to start becoming aware of them, right? Phase transition. This is about how change occurs. And we love this phrase, punctuated equilibrium, which is all about change happens very, very slowly. And nothing happens for a long time. And all of this is because systems are locked in, okay? And they reinforcing feedback loops keep a system locked in and nothing changes for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden, a small thing triggers and a whole system can change very dramatically. Punctuated equilibrium. Crowdsourcing, collective intelligence. Again, can you see the participatory nature of this type of working? AI is making some really interesting contributions at the moment. Experiential learning, learning by doing. Red teaming. If you've got sometimes this is also called war gaming. You specifically set up a group of people. If you've got a plan and a strategic plan, you set up a group of people to actively start telling you why that's a bad plan, because it helps you strengthen what it is you want to do, helps you test your assumptions. Serious gaming, design thinking, experimenting, and rapid prototyping. So instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, running a small set of low-cost experiments. Backcasting, having a view of the future, looking backward and saying, well, how did we reach this? What were the steps? Road mapping is planning forward. If we do this, what needs to happen next? Futures wheels, it's a technique name for impact analysis. If this thing happens, what would it cause? What would happen in the social domain, politically? What would happen economically? What would happen environmentally? And if you've got that first ring of what would happens, you do a second one. If politically this happens and it mixes with socially that happens, what would then happen? And you kind of get this bull's eye. That's futures wheels. We're going to do causal layered analysis today. We're going to get our hands dirty and actually do it. And one of my favorites is Three Horizons Framework, which is both a systems thinking tool and a futures tool, because it helps us imagine a completely different preferred system, juxtaposes that against how things look today, and helps you think through what needs to change, but also asking you to see what pockets of the future exist in the present already. So a very powerful technique there. Why? Why do we do any of this stuff? People, because we live in a VUCA world. This is American Army, so I mean, maybe a little bit politically incorrect. This is American Army tech terminology. Volatile, extreme fluctuations, uncertain. You cannot predict in a VUCA world. Complex, more connections between completely different players. There's no cause and effect, you know. It's not like this causes that, and therefore we can have that end result. The world does not work like that. And ambiguous. Things are never simply black or white, never clearly yes or no. Anything can be viewed and interpreted in a myriad of different ways, and there are huge, high-stake decisions and choices that get made on ambiguity without people being aware of it. This just illustrates the point graphically. You can see these are risks. This comes from the World Economic Forum, literally how they are connected to one another. A thicker line means a stronger connection. If something falls here, it triggers and can turn other things, make them happen. And there's this phrase of systemic risk. Now, right now, we are going through a very, very turbulent phase. The last 30, 40 years have been fairly stable. It's changing. The next 30, 40 years are going to be a completely different system. So it's an exciting time to be a young person. Essentially, geopolitically, we are shifting. I'm going to leave you to read the rest of this by yourselves. We're entering a Westernless world. I fall into the category of people that say this is an opportunity. Thank you. There's lots of language around a polycrisis. The global south people have been living with polycrisis forever. We know how to navigate it. So with the fact that the world seems to be going crazy could even be a poly opportunity. New ideas could get a hearing, new trade relationships, new power dynamics. All right. Economically, geoeconomics, we are now in state-led capitalism. Okay, you'll see the history, it's been very different. We've had neoliberalism and all its harms, but essentially it's the weaponization of economics. Where's this going? We don't know yet. And it might also be a mixture. Techno-feudalism, very dangerous economic model, but then also some exciting things, maybe green capitalism. Also, maybe different pockets, seeing that the world is fragmenting, we might have different economic models, different places in the world. This is how to think about change. Sometimes it is just good old-fashioned cyclical. We've seen this before. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The sort of geopolitical adversaries. And then a lot of really important change, slow and steady, but with tipping points. So that's all about climate change is a big one. It happens imperceptibly. We've known about this since the 1980s. They're able to model it very well. Nothing happens until there are tipping points. And there's some wonderful science around this about what the different tipping points are. And then shocks to the system. That's coronavirus. That's another shock to the system. Nothing changes much for a long time. And then all of a sudden things change very dramatically. And so this interplay between being aware of predictable, sometimes even shocks. That pandemic was predictable. We didn't know when, but we knew it was something that was waiting in the wings. We also know that there are things like mega trends, large scale social, economic, political, environmental, technological changes. They're slow to form, but once they've taken root, they exercise profound and lasting influence on many, if not most, human activities. So urbanization. The vast majority of the African continent is not urbanized yet. Urbanizing will shape the future of the world. And that is because in 25 years' time, 1/4 of the world's population will be African. The center of the world is China and Southeast Asia now, economically and otherwise. And that's because of that huge, strong demographic dividend that is paid off. In 3 decades' time, it's going to be African. Bioengineering, climate change, technology, demographics. The world is aging very rapidly. It's going to have massive effects. Now, the point is we're entering a complex world. We're entering a chaotic world. We are in a chaotic world. You're dealing with very complex issues. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. So this is why futures thinking and systems thinking. Systems thinking is all about everything is connected to everything else. The world is not like a car. That is a system, but it's a mechanical system. And if the carburetor breaks, you replace it and the car will drive again. The world does not work like that. So one of the tools we're going to use on today is called causal layered analysis. It helps us. All right, make sense of a chaotic world. It helps us to imagine we're going to come up with a little headline of what a completely different future looks like. The theme I've chosen for you is education and artificial intelligence. It helps us deepen our thinking of issues before we start engaging around what the future should be. And it's a way of helping to identify potential intervention points. If we want to start working with change, where can we start making change happen? Causal layered analysis is good for that. I'm going to go straight into explaining how this works. And that is to say, I want you to imagine an iceberg. You're going to go into groups and you're going to have a whiteboard in each of your groups. And it's going to have this exact same template on it. It's meant to look like an iceberg. There's the tip. So 90% of the iceberg's actually under the water. This is the under the water part. And what we've got is we've got headlines, literally everyday headlines. You'll have a headline. Each group's going to have a headline around artificial intelligence. AI is great for innovation, but it makes inequality worse. That's a headline. Okay. I'm going to do a little example in a minute. Icebergs are melting. That's a headline, right? But then we go deeper and we say to ourselves, what are the patterns and the systems that cause this headline? Okay, just think a little bit deeper. Why are icebergs melting? What's causing that? Patterns and systems. And this is very important. I want you to think broadly. Patterns and systems fall into different categories. And the way to remember it is steep V. Steep V. S is for social. T is for technological. E is for economic. The other E is environmental. The P is for political. And V is for values. So patterns and systems can be economic. They can be social. They can be political. Think broad, okay? You're going to have to think quickly. Do not do analysis, all right? Just pop, you'll have sticky notes. Pop what comes into your head, pop it onto a sticky note. And because multiple perspectives are important, do not debate, do not seek consensus, just go through the exercise. It's specifically designed that way. Once you've done patterns and systems, ask yourself what are the worldviews and the values that give rise to these patterns and systems. Okay? So, and these lines are blurry, by the way, because something that is sometimes a worldview to one person might be a pattern to another. Again, there's no science to this, okay? And once you've done worldviews and values, I want you to look at myths and metaphors, deeply held beliefs, okay? Things that we just unquestioningly assume. And the reason we do this is we're moving from the visible to the hidden things we hardly ever talk about, and we're moving from the short term to long term. And this is literally what it looks like. So there's a headline, icebergs are melting. If somebody's feeling brave, you can unmute yourself and call out a pattern and a system. So it'll have a sticky note. So icebergs are melting. Ben, I'm going to call on you. What is a pattern and a system that gives rise to icebergs are melting?
Climate change.
Yes. And climate change is burning of fossil fuels. Yeah. And what else? Unquestioned models of economic growth. That's probably a worldview or a value, isn't it? So can you see these things could fall into either category? What other worldviews and values? Consumption, even sometimes conspicuous consumption, having more and more. The other interesting things, levels of comfort. It's important. If it's very hot and I live in a very hot climate, I need to have the air conditioner to switched on. That's also, it's giving rise to. So, and if one goes, you populate this, think about it. Steep V is important, political. There's a very, very strong lobby in the oil industry. Eventually, we get to deeply held myths and metaphors. Now, if at that very deepest level, why is it that human beings are extracting and growing economically and constantly using technology to, in many cases, not even lead fulfilling lives, but the kind of on the hamster treadmill or whatever? At the very deepest level, it has to do with our relationship between us and nature. We've lost touch with that. And maybe sometimes it's even biblical. The book of Genesis, the Lord created earth and put Adam in charge, and Adam has got power and control over nature. So we hardly ever talk about things like that. But once you get to that bottom, and again, remember, there is no right, no wrong. Pick one of those, and we flip it. So halfway through this exercise, or 3/4 of the way through the exercise, Ben and I and Anne-Elisabeth and maybe Manisha are going to say, let's flip it. Okay, and you transform one deeply held belief and you work your way back up to the surface. So let's take that deeply held belief of Adam in charge of the world and nature, man, and say, well, if you flip that and say, all human beings live in harmony with nature and are respectful to it, and take only that which they really need, but then also plow back, regenerative practices. If that is a deeply held belief, okay, so we flipped it. What worldviews and values would that give you? Again, just a quick brainstorm. What patterns and systems would that give you? And ultimately, what new headline would that give you? And it typically is something completely, utterly different. Okay, so that is the exercise. I'm going to stop sharing. And I'm going to set my timer again. There we go. Put you into rooms, get you started on a whiteboard. Everybody, if you haven't worked with a whiteboard yet, and you're battling, we'll explain it to you. You know what? Let me just show you quickly.
Yes, that would be great for those who are,
Yeah.
who have seen the whiteboard used, but have not participated in the whiteboard yet.
And if you have some whiteboard experience, please help your colleagues, please. Right, I can see all of you. Now, very important, at the top left, press that little button. You'll see there are 4 whiteboards. So if you are in group number 1, work in whiteboard number 1. If you are in group number 2, please work on whiteboard number 2. Okay, you'll see you'll be able to click in them. So each one has got a slightly different headline. So just make sure you're in the right whiteboard. I'm going to zoom in. I think everybody is able to follow me. Hold on. Oh, no, let me know. Oh, Aurelian is presenting, but that's fine. Right. Okay, there. I see somebody's made a huge sticky. That's absolutely fine as well. Delete it at some stage, play around. But essentially, what you want to do is zoom in a little bit, and there you'll see your headline. And your job is to say what patterns and systems are causing that headline. You just put your mouse or your trackpad on a sticky note, drag it over, double click in the sticky note, and start typing. All right. And everybody can have a chance. Remember to think steep V and work quickly. Don't start before I put you. You can have a little small practice. Thank you. I see some of you practicing. If you draw a funny line on the board, if you have time, go back to it and just delete it. It doesn't matter. But the important things you can't move. But essentially, your job is to drag stickies and populate the stickies.
And if we want to remove a sticky note, how do we do that?
Oh, you just go sit on it and press delete.
Right.
But don't remove somebody else's sticky note, okay?
Yeah.
You may only remove your own sticky note.
Right.
All right, so everybody, each group is going to have their own. Can you see you can zoom in and out? I'm just using the wheel of my mouse. On your trackpad, you would use something else. And down here, if somebody's really, really lost, are the actual written instructions of what I've just explained. But it's easy to do. Don't overthink it. Just start. I'm going to put you into breakout rooms.
Just
Yes,
yes,
Anne-Elisabeth.
before being in the breakout groups, how long do we want to be in the breakout groups?
Well, I'm going to give you 30 minutes to get to the bottom of the water there.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to give you 10 minutes to come out of the bottom of the water.
Right.
And then that's going to leave about 10 minutes for us to convene at the end and just share. So each group must also somebody from each group just volunteer to share what it is you've come up with. But your job is to populate, and the faster you do this, the better. When you get to the bottom here, if your unspoken, deeply held belief is greed, all right, flip it over. And then work your way back up and work your way back up on the side like this. And then ultimately, we want a new headline. Your end job is to end up here in that yellow sticky with a brand new headline after you flipped the very deepest layer. So I want you to do a transformation down there.
Right.
Okay.
And so when you presented your exercise, you said the iceberg, you had a prompt. Iceberg is are melting, right? So we are working on another prompt.
Uh, oh,
And
icebergs are, yes, you're working on another prompt, the other
yeah,
headline. Each group has got their own headline.
yes,
So
okay.
I'm just zooming in. I'm showing you group one's headline, AI in the classroom, revolutionizing learning or undermining critical thinking.
Right.
All right.
Yes.
So that's the headline. So what patterns and systems, is giving rise to that headline? Okay. AI arms race.
Right.
All right, there we
So,
go.
Tanya, also maybe just to let everyone know that we will be coming into the different breakout rooms to help you if you are getting stuck and help explain the process to you. I think, Tanya, you said if we can assign someone who's familiar with whiteboards to room 4,
Yes.
and maybe we can just start in each group and just in the interests of time, get going now.
Thank you, Ben. That is absolutely it. Get going. I'm going to put you in rooms. Ben's going to be in room 2. Anne-Elisabeth's going to be in room 3. Literally just start. If you get stuck, ask. All right. And I'm going to hop into group 4 because I think, see, can you look at everybody, there is a sequence. You have to do this in steps. So do patterns and systems first, and then worldviews and values, and only then. Don't jump straight to myths and metaphors. All right. So thank you. I can see group 1's off to a good start. So I'm going to jump to group 4. Okay. Everybody, I'm putting you in rooms. I'll come and check if somebody has got trouble being in a room. And hold on, hold on. Oh, there we go. 56 seconds for all rooms to close. That is not what I planned. Everybody, we have 49 seconds. Group 1's well ahead. I'm going to reopen the rooms. I just have to wait for the countdown to end. And how many? Oh, are some people in rooms already? Yes.
Yes.
And people that I'm looking at are not in a room. Is that right? Or am I in a room?
I think you're not, I'm not, neither.
I'm not in a room as well.
Okay. I'm so sorry. All the breakout rooms are going to close, and then I'm just going to redo this. First, tech gremlin, people. Sorry about that. Here we go. Let's see what happens now. All right. And everybody is going into rooms now. There we go.
I think I will stop the recording right now, right?